looking around the town and found a warehouse that had rubber boots in, and so we each got us a pair of rubber boots. We just took them. They belonged to the Army, but we just took them. Another one had a pile of ponchos, and we each took us a poncho and hats. And another right near where we were going to stay was a pile of Army cots. Must have been 1,000 or so. We took us each an Army cot. But we had no bedding, and we never did have any bedding. We just had the bare cot to sleep on. Wasn't very comfortable. But we were able to get out of the weather elements at night by moving into a bombed out nurses' quarters at a hospital that the Japanese had burned down when they left. So that's where we decided to stay, and it worked out pretty good because we were able to perform our duties, stand watches, and do whatever needed to be done. We were put to work right immediately. Then every night the Japanese would send over bombers, high-level bombing, and we'd have maybe 3 or 4 alarms during the night where you had to get up and take cover. And they had these big searchlights, radar controlled, that would lock on to the bombers way up there, and way up at the end of that light you could see a bomber and bombs being dropped. That was how close and visual it was. We could actually see those bombers, and they always, bombs always exploded way before they hit the ground. They were incendiaries, and they exploded, and then there was just tons of fire coming down. The idea was to set fires all over Tacloban City, but I never did observe any reaching the ground. They always burned out before. Phosphorus burns pretty fast and intense, but they always burned out. And
so they didn't actually do much damage.
What?
They didn't actually do the damage they were hoping.
No, they didn't at that time. We never observed any fires. And that would go on all night long. A little later, they'd give an all clear, and we'd go back to bed. And then pretty soon there'd be an alarm, and we'd get up and take cover, and same thing would happen. That went on night after night after night. We had contend with that. We had a Army gun emplacement within 100 feet of where we were quartered, and they would open up. They were 105 millimeter howitzers, and they'd fire all night long at the Japanese bombers. Never hit a bomber. They always and then we were also, where we were quartered was right on the landing pattern of our own aircraft, who were stationed at an airfield a few miles down the road from Tacloban, called Tanawan Air Base. And we were in the landing pattern of that air base. So when our own aircraft would fly missions, they'd always come back and fly that pattern before landing down at Tanawan Air Base. So we had observed that every evening when the flights would come back. And one night, the last plane that came in, and this was before dark, it was around sundown time, a twin-engine Japanese plane came in. It was a suicide plane, and the anti-aircraft detachment down the field picked them up and started shooting at it, but they never hit it. It successfully flew in, landed, and crashed deliberately into as many aircraft that were parked, already secured, and for quite a while there we had bullets. We were in the crossfire of those anti-aircraft guns. It was pretty exciting. Tracers. You could see every bullet. So we watched that. That was one of the biggest. And then there'd always be a reconnaissance plane that would sneak into the pattern and walk right through the pattern and never get shot at. We could see the big old red meatball on the fuselage and under the wings, and see the pilot sitting up there in his plane flying and getting ready to land. And some of them did land. They were suicide kamikazes. They were the first of the kamikazes that we saw in the Philippines. And of course they were active on ships. They were in the ship. While they're at the Japanese counterattack, their ships were in force, and there was a Japanese task force coming up from southern China to counter-invade on Leyte, at Tagloba Leyte, at Leyte Gulf. And they were prepared to enter the Gulf through San Bernardino Straits, which they did, and it was a huge attack. Actually, it was a fleet that had been stationed in South China, and it came up to attack our invasion forces. It got into Leyte Gulf, and we had a fleet of our own stationed in Leyte Gulf in a position prepared to meet that enemy force, which they did. And as they came into through San Bernardino Strait, which was narrow, they met with a number of battleships. The leader of which was the New Mexico, with Admiral Jesse Oldendorf as the commanding officer of that battle force. They were all ships that had been sunk at Pearl Harbor and had been raised and refitted and redesigned and upgraded with all the technologies, and there they were waiting for the Japanese task force. We knew what was happening because we were in contact with elements that were watching. Anyway, as they came through that force, or that strait, they were attacked by Admiral Oldendorf's fleet, and out on the edge, the first ones that they ran into, the first ships that they ran into were could have been PT boats that were stationed out the far end, and then cruisers, which not cruisers, destroyers. Destroyers carry torpedoes, and that's one of their main armaments is torpedoes. They're fast and they can deliver a torpedo pretty close to the enemy. They ran into torpedoes, and then cruisers, which were heavy guns, had heavy guns, and then battleships, which had 16-inch guns, were the main force made up. After at that time, during that battle, the flagship pulled into a safe area away from the actual battle that was taking underway. Being a non-combat ship, she wasn't supposed to be where the battle was. She gave her directions at a location close but not in the battle. But we were close enough. It was a night engagement, and we were close enough to see the gun flashes, and I stood on the main deck of the Wasatch and watched that battle proceed until I thought I'd better get back to where my post was, where I was supposed to be, which I did. But I actually saw the gun flashes of that battle that was going on. The ships were about maybe 25 miles away or so, but you could see the reflection off the clouds. Now, there were rain clouds in the area, and you might mistake those lightning blasts as a blast from a heavy naval gun, but they're entirely different. Everybody's seen lightning, how they flicker, but not the reflections of a gun. They're prolonged. You see them open up and then trail off. So I knew that they were gun flash, so I'll watch that battle.